What happens when ambition collides with fear? Saddam Hussein's nuclear dream wasn't just a vision. It was a ticking time bomb for the Middle East. In the 1960s, Iraq kicked off a nuclear program, swearing up and down it was all for peaceful purposes. But for Israel, it was a nightmare in the making. For Saddam, the objective was clear: achieving nuclear capability no matter the cost. For Israel, the mission was equally uncompromising: to stop the program by hook or by crook. Both sides were dead set on completing their mission, unwilling to back down. Give it a thought: a sprawling desert facility buzzing with scientists under Saddam's orders, while Israel watches from afar, calculating its next move. The tension is palpable. With global powers backing both sides in this high-stakes conflict, the world watched closely, analyzing every move with a keen eye. Would Saddam succeed in realizing his nuclear ambitions, or would Israel manage to derail them through bold and decisive action? Stay tuned, as the answer will leave you on the edge of your seat. By the late 1960s, Saddam Hussein was steadily rising in political influence within Iraq's ruling Ba'ath Party. As Iraq moved toward greater nationalization of its resources and power structures, Saddam envisioned a bold future, one in which Iraq would become not just a regional heavyweight, but a global force to reckon with. Nuclear capability to him wasn't simply a military asset. It was a symbol of sovereignty, scientific advancement, and strategic deterrence. In the early 1970s, Iraq ramped up its nuclear ambitions. In 1976, a major breakthrough came when Iraq signed a deal with France to purchase 2 nuclear reactors: Osirak, also known as Tammuz 1, and a smaller unit, ISIS. France provided Iraq with enriched uranium fuel under the condition that the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, would monitor its use. Officially, the reactors were meant for peaceful energy research. Unofficially, they sparked alarm bells in Western and Israeli intelligence circles. The design of Osirak closely resembled systems that, if slightly modified and left unchecked, could potentially be used to produce weapons-grade plutonium. Saddam's regime publicly denied any military intent, but intelligence agencies began drawing a more troubling conclusion. This was not just a research facility. It was the nucleus of a future weapons program. Israel, in particular, was deeply concerned. Having faced existential threats since its inception, and still haunted by the memory of the Holocaust, its doctrine was clear: no hostile neighbor would be allowed to acquire a nuclear bomb. Israeli leaders watched Saddam's nuclear progress with growing unease. Diplomacy seemed ineffective, and as Osirak's construction advanced, time appeared to be running out. France provided Iraq with uranium enriched to 93%, a level dangerously close to weapons grade. This fact, more than anything else, intensified Israel's fears and suspicions. Could Saddam's bold nuclear deals with France be the beginning of something far more dangerous? Let's look at how the world started to take notice. By 1979, the Osirak project was nearing a point of no return. With French engineers steadily advancing construction and uranium shipments making their way to Iraq, Israeli intelligence concluded that Saddam's nuclear ambitions were no longer theoretical. The project was real, it was active, and it was dangerous. Although Iraq insisted the fuel and design were for peaceful purposes and subject to IAEA oversight, analysts worried about the reactor's potential for military diversion. The international community largely relied on this oversight to avoid conflict, but Israel was not convinced. Past experiences and regional tensions left them unwilling to risk complacency. Israel attempted diplomatic pressure, urging France and the United States to reconsider their support. But geopolitical interests, especially France's commercial ties with Iraq, overrode these warnings. Behind the scenes, Mossad began to take action. A 1979 explosion in a French warehouse storing Osirak components, likely an act of sabotage, temporarily disrupted Iraq's timeline. But it was clear delays would not be enough. The countdown toward a permanent solution had begun. What happens when secret sabotage fails to stop a nuclear clock? The answer would come in the form of one of the most daring airstrikes in history. By early 1981, Israeli intelligence believed the Osirak reactor would become operational within months. Once that happened, Any military strike would risk catastrophic radioactive fallout. The narrow window for action was rapidly closing. The Israeli Air Force prepared a bold mission. Pilots practiced low-altitude navigation to simulate flying under enemy radar, training in the Negev desert to mimic Iraq's terrain. Meanwhile, Israel continued to push for international intervention, but little changed. Saddam, occupied with the Iran-Iraq War, attracted sympathy and support from major powers who assumed he could be politically managed. But Prime Minister Menachem Begin didn't buy that assumption. For him, a nuclear Iraq wasn't just a strategic threat, it was an existential one. He greenlit final planning, and Operation Opera was set in motion. The final plan was set, but would it succeed or ignite a larger conflict? On June 7, 1981, 8 Israeli F-16 fighter jets, escorted by 6 F-15s, launched from Etzion Air Base. They flew under the radar across Jordan and Saudi Arabia toward Baghdad. At precisely 5:35 p.m. local time, the jets released their bombs on the Osirak reactor. The strike lasted less than 2 minutes. The containment dome cracked, the core was destroyed, and the site went up in flames. 10 Iraqi soldiers and 1 French technician lost their lives. Yet no Israeli planes were lost. The mission was militarily flawless and politically explosive. A successful strike, but the political world was about to erupt. The global response was immediate. The United Nations Security Council condemned Israel's action in Resolution 487. France broke off cooperation. The Reagan administration expressed disapproval, though some U.S. defense officials quietly approved. Iraq maintained its nuclear intentions were peaceful. The Soviet Union and much of the Arab world accused Israel of escalating tensions. But intelligence experts behind closed doors acknowledged the strike likely prevented Iraq from achieving nuclear capability. While diplomatically isolated in the short term, Israel's gamble had worked. They had bought time and possibly avoided a future war. But if Israel stopped Iraq's nuclear quest, how did Saddam manage to secretly rebuild? After the airstrike, Saddam didn't abandon his nuclear dream. He buried it deeper. Iraq's program shifted underground and became covert. Dr. Jafar Dia Jafar was appointed to oversee an ambitious uranium enrichment plan using centrifuge technology. Iraq disguised its research facilities as industrial sites and relied on shell companies to acquire materials globally. While IEA inspections continued, their scope was limited. Saddam's regime grew increasingly adept at evasion. By the late 1980s, Iraq's nuclear program had quietly re-emerged, hidden from global view. The world wouldn't realize just how far Iraq had gone until war revealed the truth. In 1990, Iraq's invasion of Kuwait brought the world's attention back. During and after the Gulf War, the UN initiated extensive inspections. What they found shocked many. Iraq had been just a year or two away from developing a bomb. UNSCOM inspectors uncovered extensive covert infrastructure, centrifuge components, design blueprints, and indications of weaponization efforts. Though facilities were dismantled in the early 90s, the revelation deeply altered how the world viewed Iraq and non-proliferation enforcement. But even inspections couldn't stop what came next, a new war built on old fears. The 1990s saw continued cat-and-mouse games between UN inspectors and Iraqi authorities. By 1998, inspections were suspended amid allegations of spying. Operation Desert Fox followed, aiming to cripple remaining WMD capabilities. After September 11th, the U.S. shifted its focus back to Iraq. Despite limited evidence, fears of renewed WMD programs, including nuclear ambitions, became central to the case for war. In 2003, the U.S.-led invasion began, but no active nuclear program was discovered. Saddam had bluffed and paid the price. What did the world learn from Saddam's long nuclear deception? The legacy still shapes policy today. Operation Opera is now seen by many as a masterstroke of preventive action, halting Iraq's nuclear program before it could launch. Meanwhile, the 2003 invasion, based on flawed intelligence, became a cautionary tale of overreach. Saddam's nuclear journey underscores the dangers of dual-use technology, the difficulty of verifying intent, and the limitations of international oversight. His downfall serves as a powerful reminder. The line between peaceful energy and weapons development is razor thin, and trust, once lost, can drive nations to war. The ruins of Tuwaitha remain a haunting symbol of ambition, secrecy, and missed chances. For the world, the story of Iraq's nuclear dream is not just history, it's a warning. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Iraq's nuclear ambitions. Subscribe for more insights into historical events shaping today's world.